Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
Let's get started this morning by having a look at our conversation on CARICOM, and we are joined by Barbados Ambassador to CARICOM, His Excellency David Comissiong. Ambassador Comissiong, good morning.
Morning, Pearson. Pleasure to be here.
Good to have you as always. I want to start by looking at Ghana. Just recently, just a couple of days ago, as a matter of fact, Ghana celebrated its 65th anniversary of independence at Ilara Court. And what a time you guys had.
Oh, yes, yes, Pearson. Sorry. It was just last night, actually. You had a wonderful celebration. As you know, there are more than 100 Ghanaian nurses in Barbados, and they have formed themselves into a Ghana Association of Barbados. And so the Prime Minister very graciously offered Ilara Court. Everybody pitched in, the NCF, Prime Minister's office, and we really had a grand celebration last night. Ghana's non-resident ambassador to Barbados, he came in all the way from Cuba. And yes, last year, Prime Minister Motley was in Ghana on their Independence Day at the invitation of their president. I accompanied her to that celebration. So it was wonderful to continue the momentum this year with a grand celebration in Barbados.
And so this is, again, another demonstration of our strengthening of our relationships with the continent Africa, indeed. And in so many ways, we're seeing the reciprocation coming, like with the establishment of the Africa Export-Import Bank. Let's talk a little bit about that and what they've been doing in the Caribbean thus far.
Yes, Barbadians would have been hearing quite a bit about the Africa Export-Import Bank. I mean, they would have been hearing the name, but it's important that they know a bit more about this institution, because this institution is poised to play a very important part in our developing relationship with the continent of Africa. It's a public-private African bank. It's both African governments and the private sector. It was established some 30 years ago, 1994. By Caribbean standards, it's a massive institution. It has assets of close to 63 billion Barbados dollars. We say it's a bank, but it's really the Afrexim group of companies. It's not just a bank. It's a fund for investing in trade. It is a company for developing industrial parks and special economic zones. It's a company for developing specialist hospitals. It's a payment system, a system to facilitate trade payments across the continent of Africa. And it is going to be establishing a headquarters, a Caribbean headquarters, right here in Barbados. And, it will start with an office, but that office will then mushroom into a conference center, hotel facilities, and so forth. So it's making a very, very substantial investment in the Caribbean and in Barbados in particular. We first came into contact with this bank, Pearson, in the dark period of 2020, when COVID was at its height, when the whole world was in a panic. All countries all around the world were scrambling to purchase medical supplies and personal protective equipment. Everybody was sending in their orders to the big medical supplies companies. And no one would take the CARICOM order seriously. We had the money, but we were so small. Our order was so small compared with the big countries that we couldn't get a hearing. No one would sell to us. And Africa came to our rescue. Africa said, look, Africa, we have this continental-wide African medical supplies platform financed by this African Export-Import Bank. Why don't you put your CARICOM order into our large Pan-African order, and we'll approach the market? And so said, so done. And because of the size of the order, not only were we able to get the attention of the companies, but the price that we got for our Caribbean medical supplies was much lesser because of the economies of scale. We were part of a much bigger bigger order, and so that was the beginning, a very good beginning. And in September 2021, we had the first Africa CARICOM Heads of Government Summit. All kinds of beautiful undertakings made by the governments. But who was it that followed up? Within a month, a team from the African Export-Import Bank was in Barbados to follow up on that summit. So that's October 2021. They started to work with Barbados and with Export Barbados, Invest Barbados. And within less than a year, together we pulled off the African Caribbean Trade and Investment Forum right here in Barbados. 1,700 participants, 1,200 out of Africa from 41 different countries. Out of that historic forum came the partnership agreement between the bank and CARICOM countries, the same agreement that the bank has with the African countries. And so far, 9 CARICOM countries have signed on to that agreement. On the basis of those 9 countries signing, the bank has allocated a sum of $1.5 billion to finance investment and trade between Africa and the Caribbean. And they have said, their directors have said, if and when the other CARICOM countries sign on, that sum will be increased to $3 billion. So it is looking extremely good. There are at least 10 initiatives that are already on the agenda for the relationship between Africa and the Caribbean, negotiated by or facilitated by the African Export-Import Bank.
The little boy in me gets all excited and says, when do we start, sir? And so what do you say to that question to the little boy who wants to, when does this really get going? We want to see the establishment of the headquarters here. We want to really see things beginning to move ahead. What can you say about that?
Well, the headquarters is coming very soon. I think the way they're going to start with the headquarters is they're going to start with premises that already exist in Barbados, and they're being facilitated by Invest Barbados and Export Barbados. So they're going to start with, but then they're going to be building. They're going to be building their own headquarters. In a sense, we have already started. I mean, the most important thing is that sum of money that has already been set in place to finance trade and investment. Since we had the forum in September of last year, the African Import Bank has brought 3 trade missions to CARICOM. 3 trade missions. They've been in and out of our region since September last year, and a number of deals. So the trade missions are where they are bringing African private sector business people to the region to discuss investment opportunities. So, for example, already on the cards is a fish processing enterprise for Barbados. Already finalized is the construction of a geothermal energy plant in St. Kitts, and a number of other things are in the works. The thing about this is that the bank is standing behind these projects. So the bank is bringing the business people together, but the bank is also providing the finance to ensure that the project gets done. The bank has also, in addition to the bank operating in the Caribbean, the bank is also supporting the idea that CARICOM should have its very own Caribbean Export-Import Bank, and the bank is making grant financing available to the CARICOM Secretariat to finance the studies that will lead to the establishment of a Caribbean export-import bank. The bank has already committed to doing a trade and investment forum every year. The idea is that these forums that would bring together African and Caribbean business people, investors, governments, etc., should be on an annual basis. Ultimately, it will be 1 year in the Caribbean, 1 year in Africa. But to begin with, to consolidate the momentum that we have made in the Caribbean, this year's forum will also be in the Caribbean, and they're working on that right now. A big thing that will excite Barbadians is the bank has undertaken to help put in place that direct flight between Africa and the Caribbean. So the bank has undertaken the role of meeting with African airlines, discussing with them to see which would be the best partner to get that direct flight done. And at the CARICOM Heads of Government Summit in Bahamas last month, the bank came to the summit, their whole team came to the summit, and they revealed that negotiations are ongoing with a Nigerian company, Earpiece, and it is looking extremely promising. And the likelihood is that we will consolidate an arrangement with Earpiece for weekly flights between Lagos, Nigeria, and Barbados. So it is my hope that during the first half of this year, we can see that initiative materialize. The bank is also working with our CARICOM Development Fund. Our CARICOM Development Fund is trying to establish some new Caribbean development bonds. We have close to $60 billion US dollars in savings, Pearson. The people of CARICOM in the banks of our region, gaining little, virtually no interest. And so Prime Minister Motley has been pushing the idea, look, instead of us going all over the world trying to beg in for money to finance development, why don't we try to mobilize some of these savings that belong to us, the Caribbean people? So rather than having this money just lying in the bank, getting no interest, why not give our own Caribbean people the opportunity to invest some of their savings in development bonds that will bring them maybe 5% interest, so they can make something on their money. So the bank is actually helping with the technical work to make that happen. So it's already, Pearson. Remember,
Yes.
this bank first came to our region in October of 2021. It's just about a year and a half. And already so much that is substantial and concrete is already on the table.
That's fantastic indeed. And so with all of that, Ambassador, we got to leave it right there. We're out of time. You said something to me, my technical director. Right. So we know that just recently you did something really different. And so we want to share with our audience this morning this difference. If you didn't know him, now you know him indeed. Take a look, folks.
It's not so much about I am a Bajan. Ghana is the name I come to proclaim. We will be merry, jolly, and gay. The 6th of March, Independence Day. Ghana.
Wow, well done. Well done, Ambassador. Well done indeed. A bit of extempo. You did it very, very well indeed. I want to thank you so much. Go ahead.
Fun and game in Lara Court last night. I had to fill in for the Prime Minister because she couldn't get away from the estimates debate.
Right.
But it was a wonderful occasion.
Indeed.
And you go ahead, Pearson.
Your father will be very proud of you for what you just put forward.
Yes. That's a beautiful song that Lord Kitchener composed 1957, when Ghana became the first of the black African, the British colonies, not just African, Caribbean, to gain their independence. So Ghana became a symbol, a very important symbol of colonial freedom. And of course, we in Barbados, we followed 9 years later
Yes.
in 1966. So to celebrate Ghana's independence on the 6th of March is a big thing. It was really historic, not only for Africa, but for us in the Caribbean as well. And the final thing I should say, Pearson, that the African Export-Import Bank is also working with us on, they have something called the Pan-African Payments and Settlement System. That's how they facilitate trade across the various countries of Africa, so that you don't, when you're trading, you don't have to be putting up all of this hard currency. This is a system for facilitating the payments for trade. We used to have that system in CARICOM a couple of decades ago with our CARICOM multilateral clearing facility. So our central bankers right now are in discussions with the African Bank to see how this payment system that they have developed for Africa could be extended to the CARICOM region. So not only would it help us in intra-CARICOM trade, but once we put it in place, then it makes it easier for CARICOM to trade with the continent of Africa. They have the African Continental Free Trade Area. We are developing our single market and single economy. So that would be the financial mechanism to join the two trading regions together.
Wow, there's a lot going on. There's a lot happening indeed. And so we want to thank you again for bringing it clearly to our attention. Ambassador David Comissiong, thank you so much for joining us again this morning.
My pleasure, Pearson.
As always.
Thank you.
Ambassador David Comissiong, Barbados Ambassador to CARICOM. There's a lot happening in that relationship between Barbados and Ghana, Barbados and Africa. And so let's pay close attention to its development.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning.